Hey, welcome everybody. It's Jim. I'm back, and it looks like we've got a critical mass of you linked in or dialed in. So I appreciate everybody. It's like we got a few dozen folks that have joined already. Hey, Mike. Hey, thanks. I appreciate the chat, and I'm assuming that everybody can hear me, and if you are set up, you can see the screen. So if you can't either hear me or see the screen, give me a quick chat. Let me know that that is the case. I'm guessing that you can hear me, and that's where how you would know to chat. But anyway, hey, we've got an awful lot to cover. This is the proverbial 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So we've got about an hour. I'm going to try to wrap it up just shy of an hour, let everybody kind of get back on track to what they were doing today. But there's probably a good 15, 16 different pieces that I want to cover with you today. And as you see, the topic today is quantifying pain, monetizing it or quantifying the pain. And I know that if you people at New Millennium are a lot like other clients, other groups of individuals that I do work for, you start to get to the point, and it's probably 2-3 months in, you start thinking, you know what, we're going over a lot of the same material, and that is true. There's a method to that madness about revisiting this, because like with any kind of behavior modification, you're going to have to run through the drills over and over and over again until it becomes unconscious competence. So I want to dive back into the pain step. And I know we've dealt with pain. It is, as I'm sure you're all familiar, it's the third compartment in the sales sequence. So we're going to dive into this and do a little bit deeper understanding about pain and the quantification of it. And as far as quantifying or monetizing pain, I after having done training for probably thousands of sales individuals, this particular piece, the quantification or monetization of a prospect's pain, is likely the most overlooked, frequently overlooked portion of a sales call. So if I ask somebody, if I say, hey, Charlie, what was their problem, and how much do you think that problem cost them? Charlie would say, well, here was their problem, Jim. Their problem was not getting the kind of quality that they had expected. The material was far too late. And if I said, well, Charlie, what do you think, round numbers, what did they tell you that problem was costing their organization? What you generally get is this blank stare, like, God, I don't know. That's not. Or they may say, Charlie might say, boy, it was a lot of money. And I say, well, how much money? He'd say, well, I don't know, but a lot, because they seem very anxious to get it rectified. And one of the issues here is like buckling down, having the guts to ask the questions about money. Now, let me throw this out in a kind of in an open chat format. Chat back to me. Why do you think, what's one of the major weaknesses, one of the 5 major weaknesses that prevent us from doing a good job of quantifying pain? Remember, there's 5 major weaknesses. What major weakness prevents us from quantifying pain? Send a quick chat. Tell me, what do you think? What's the major weakness? Fear. Good, Mike. Yeah, fear. Fear of what? Fear of talking about money. Good, Justin. Yeah, it's money weakness. Talking money makes people uncomfortable. Good, Sev. That's exactly right. It is our inherent upbringing, our cultural DNA, where it's not real typical for us to talk to other people about their money, about things relating to money. Now, we all know that people want to know from us Hey, what's this going to cost? What's this going to cost? What's this going to cost? It's all, for them, it's all about money, right? They want to spend less than they anticipate. But on our end, prior to us giving them a number, we have to find out from them how much the problem that we're there to fix, how much that problem is costing them. So yes, those of you that chatted back were spot on. It's about our inherent weakness in talking about money, because inherently it's not something that we've been raised to be comfortable talking about. It's like it's a taboo subject, and we're going to have to kind of, you know, strengthen our spines and start digging deeper into that. So back again, just to kind of do a quick drive-by review. Bonding and rapport. The idea of bonding and rapport is to develop trust, comfort, and credibility, not just in the very beginning of a sales call, but throughout the entire conversation, the entire piece, is to strengthen that relationship, but do it on a business first, social second. Bonding and rapport, business first, social second. Don't go down those kind of false bunny trails trying to make friends when we're really trying to do is make business happen. And if we become friends with a customer, that's wonderful. That's icing on the cake. But it's not make friends first and then they'll buy from us later. What ends up happening is that it creates an awful lot of animosity and confusion, because we've done so much and helped people out so much, but they don't buy from us. They go off and they buy from our competitor, and we've created a nice social bond when we don't feel and they don't feel comfortable telling us, you know, bad news. So bonding and rapport, create instant trust, comfort, credibility in the onset. Upfront contract. The objective of the upfront contract is set a mutually agreed upon expectation about what's going to take place. And there are three. Give me a quick chat. What are the three primary compartments of the upfront contract? We have to get agreements on what three stages? What are the three main parts of an upfront contract? Send me a quick chat. Let me know what they are. Good, Dale. Time. Yeah, have to have an upfront contract on how much time I'm going to spend. Good, Dale. What's another one? So we have to get an agreement on time. We have to get an agreement on what else? Agenda. Good, Justin. Time, agenda, and the result, the outcome. Awesome. Yeah, the upfront contract, and I cannot stress this enough, is the upfront contract is the cornerstone of the sales interaction. Setting in advance the expectations about what's going to take place, time-wise, agenda-wise, and outcome-wise. Very, very imperative that we get really good, really strong, and really comfortable at setting those kind of table of contents, set it up in the beginning so that we're not fumbling later on. The pain step. The whole idea of pain is to find out, you know, what are the issues, what's the impact, and how important is it to get resolved. It is the gap. Pain is the gap between where an organization is and where they ought to be. So it's the gap between where they are, where they want to be. And that pain is why people take action. Pain is the number one biggest motivator of people taking action. And it's present pain. If there's a present pain, people cannot live in present pain. They'll do whatever it's going to take to remove it from their life. And that's what we're looking for. And as I've mentioned to you before, we all need to be those heat-seeking missiles for pain. We've got to have to be pain detectives, pain investigators, and just drill, look, not create pain, but find it and relieve it. Pain is that compelling emotional reason why people take action, why they spend money, and why they change from the status quo. Pain is key. If there's no pain, there's no sale. No pain, no change. And if there's no pain, we're going to have to say, appreciate you talking to me. Doesn't sound like I can help you. Maybe you could help me. If you're me in the business of helping other organizations, other fabricators, other contractors that might find these kind of problems taking place? Who are one or two that you think might be open-minded to having me come out and have a conversation with them? So we don't want to, let's say, waste our time with people that are not in some kind of a pain, or what is pain that hasn't happened yet? What do we call pain that hasn't happened yet? What's another word for impending pain? It's another 4-letter word. I saw somebody typed it up. I think Mike, you typed it up, chatted it before. What's pain in the future called? Good, Ernie. Fear. Yeah, fear. F-E-A-R, future experience that appears real. That is pain that hasn't occurred yet. And in many, many, many cases, the sale is made based on either a pain they want to get out of or a fear they want to avoid. Those are the two main motivators of people taking action. And most of us in sales tend to sell to the gain, the gain, G-A-I-N, as opposed to the pain. And it's easy for us to go in and say, hey, this is what you would stand to gain if you did work with New Millennium. This is what you would get, and this is how great we are. Gain, gain, gain. The problem with that is if there's no problem with what they're currently doing, they don't necessarily need to take the action to get additional gain, but not to be gain focused, but to be pain focused. That's what the whole objective of that compartment is. The next compartment to the right in the submarine is the budget or the investment compartment. And what that does is just determines, the objective there is, what are they willing to invest in order to make that pain go away? Not just in dollars and cents, but it also means that they might have to divest themselves of a relationship with the current provider of their joist and their deck, and they might have to divest of it. So they would have to, instead of invest, but divest with an existing relationship. We have to test that part out. Are they willing to make any and all necessary changes in order to make that pain go away? That budget step tests their resolve. That's the purpose of it. The decision step, it really helps to understand, what's the timeline? So the decision is understanding how they make decisions. What's the timeline? Who are the players internally that need to buy in? Who else other than New Millennium are they considering? So who are the outside influencers? Who are the competitors that we're up against? I want to know what we're being judged against. I want to know how they'll make a decision. So the decision step, as far as a step in and of itself, is very, very easy to bypass. Because if you've done a good job buying a rapport, good job upfront contract, good job of uncovering pain and having them just kind of dump all kind of pain on you and tell you how bad it hurts, and that they are willing and able to make the necessary budget or investments to move forward, by that time we think we've got one. We get let's say impacted by happy ears, and then we jump straight to the presentation or the fulfillment step, and we present our solution, and we don't find out that we've missed an awful lot because we haven't thoroughly understood their decision-making process, how they decide, when to decide, and who all is going to be involved in making the decision. And that's the objective there. The fulfillment step is simply to be able to prove that we can resolve their pain based on what they want to fix. Our fulfillment shows how we can do it and when we can do it, and exactly meets the way that they're going to make a decision. So fulfillment step is the simplest step. However, it's the easiest one to get lulled to far too quickly. Just be very, very careful that we don't, as I say, show up and throw up and do the fulfillment step far too prematurely. And then post-sale, the objective of the post-sale step is to really wrap up and conclude the project and help them to understand what the future is going to hold, how frequently we'll be interacting, what the service and support is going to look like, how they need to reach out to us on future projects, future business that they think that we can help them with. Post-sale is really talking to them about what the future is going to hold for both parties. for their company and for New Millennium in order to help them with it. That's the quick drive-by of each one of those steps and the purpose of them all. Now, let's go back into this pain compartment, the pain puzzle. The pain puzzle, and you see there on the right side of the screen, I've got that kind of little puzzle set up. And these are the three elements of those puzzle pieces fit together. So the observed problem are also, we consider those to be a pain or a problem indicator. It's what is the kind of the surface level issues that most people generally see, the observed problem, the observed pain. We call that an indicator. It's an indicator that there's something underlying that, and it's our job as DSMs is to find out what's the root cause of it. And that's the next one on the right side there. What's the cause of the problem? What's caused this problem to occur? Or what are the causes of the problem? Because there may be multiple causes of any particular problem. So when they give you or we get one cause of the problem, don't assume that we've got them all. Drill deeper, find out what are all of this. So what else are the questions that we should be asking inside the pain step. And then lastly, the last piece of that puzzle put together is the impact of the problem. So it's the indicator that they have a problem, what's causing it, and then what is the impact of that problem. And that's the part that I believe that most people in sales just kind of shy away from, or you get the indicators and the causes of the problem, and then we think we've done a good job in the pain step, where if you don't get the impact of the problem, you're leaving yourself an awful lot of, speculation that is not needed. What we need to do is we need to find out what is the impact, and that's both the impact to them corporately as well as the impact to them personally. There's two impacts, the corporate impact and the personal impact. Now, let's go to this next slide. Now, some of you may, and I'm sure have seen it. If you haven't seen it, kind of shame on me or shame on you for not paying attention when we looked at it. But there's two different kind of pain images. The one on the left is called the pain funnel. That's more of the conversation tool, the pain funnel. And the image on the right is called the painometer. The painometer, kind of like a speedometer, it goes left to right, goes from intellectual to emotional. All purchases are made emotionally. You just need to justify them intellectually. And looking at that image on the right side, the painometer, this is what I want you to have kind of ingrained in your mind's eye, kind of just a mental image of this painometer. And it starts on the left side with those pain and or gain indicators, very intellectual. And so if I said, hey, Charlie, what are some of the bigger problems? What are some of the bigger concerns and challenges that you guys are facing as fabricators as it pertains to your supply of deck and joist material? What are some of the bigger challenges you run into? Now, out of role play, if you'll notice, my questions, the questions that you need to be comfortable asking are what I determine or what are determined to be assumptive questions. Assumptive questions are questions that you're assuming that they're having. So if I say, Charlie, what are some of the bigger problems? That's assuming he has some challenges or has some concerns or problems, and I want to know what they are. I'm assuming he has them. I want to know what are they, as opposed to the closed-ended question is Charlie, do you have any questions? Questions that can be answered in yes or no are considered a closed-ended question. it's not as effective as those open-ended assumptive type of questions. Charlie needs to fill in the blanks and start to interact. I need to prime the pump by asking assumptive or presumptive type of questions. What are some of the bigger challenges and concerns that you face as it pertains to your supply of deck and joist material or your steel package for this particular project? And I want to give him the reins by asking him that question and allowing Charlie, in this case, to fill in the blanks. It's almost like an essay question. I start my pain step in asking it that way. I go to the indicators. He gives me, let's say he gives me 3 different indicators. He says, not getting it nearly as quick as we need to. You know, the lead time is far too long. The quality is subpar. It's not nearly what we'd expected. And just dealing with them from a service and a support standpoint is not nearly what we would expect. Now, if I get, and I do want to, I'm trying to get multiple indicators. The greater the amount of problems, the greater the likelihood that I might be able to be able to position myself, the new millennium, as somebody who can make those go away. So I want to get multiple indicators. And so when I get multiple indicators, then I need to prioritize. And if I say, Charlie, so I'm hearing you tell me that you've got some delivery issues, you've got some quality issues, and you've got some service and support issues. If you had to prioritize those 3, what would you say is like number 1 most critical to address right out of the bat? I mean, if we could only fix one of those 3, what would it be? And no matter which one Charlie chooses, is very, very likely his biggest pain or his biggest frustration that this guy is facing. So make sure you get, and that's indicators, that's a plural, get indicators, and then prioritize those indicators into the one that gives them the most grief, the most anxiety, the most frustration. And we as steel doctors want to deal with what is hurting them and giving them the most pain or aggravation. So that's where it's very intellectual, as they say, it's very intellectual, and we need to start it there. We need to start them talking about what they are facing. Now, if you kind of just migrate over to the left, and if you look, I'm going to drop, Charlie's pick. He says, well, Jim, he said, it's that delivery time that's, is the most critically important to us. I'd say, all right, now tell me more about that, Charlie. So I drop that indicator into that pain funnel. Tell me more about that. Can you be more specific? Can you give me a real life example of that having taken place recently? And so what I'm doing is I'm dropping that into that specific example phase of my painometer. Once they have chosen a problem that they want to have addressed or are hoping that we could address, I want to get specific real life examples of it taking place with them. I want them to relive and re-experience the pain that we're talking about. Why? Because, as I said before, people buy emotionally. I need to start to have them relive the pain and kind of re-feel the frustration and get angry at it, angry at the past problem and not want to relive it. So, and there's a series of questions that I have there. Tell me more about that, Charlie. Can you be more specific? Can you give me a real life recent example of a project that got held up because the deck and joist package wasn't there on time? How long has that been a problem for you? How many projects have you experienced that with? And what have you tried to do about it? What did you say to them, to Volcraft, when they were late? And when you threatened them, did that work? And how much do you think that's cost you? And you see, as I'm going through these series of pain funnel questions, I'm actually going through my painometer, on the right side, because I'm talking about the indicators. some specific examples, some data, some background information about it. I'm going to ask a boatload of questions, very, very assumptive type of questions. And then I'm going to get into the impact. And this is where, we as salespeople start to get a little bit weak-kneed in asking them, how much do you think that's cost you, Charlie? What do you think that's cost your business to have slowed that particular delivery down? And has it cost you much? And if so, gut feel, round numbers, what do you think that's cost you guys? What's the purpose of me causing Charlie to kind of relive that and to talk about the financial aspect? Somebody give me a quick chat. Tell me, what do you think I'm trying to do with that business impact question, that quantification or monetization of the pain? What's my purpose behind that? Send some chats over. All right, good deal. The value they place on a fix. If it's let's say for instance, it's a 300. Thanks, Justin. Make him want to change. Relive it and refill the pain. You know what? When they being the prospective customer, when they put a financial impact on a pain, it's like they can't stand the pain anymore. It's like when they start to relate that pain to what it's costing them, it really starts to aggravate them and emotionalize the whole process and procedure, because otherwise it just stays a very intellectual. In order to get emotional, we've got to start talking about an emotional subject, and that's the amount of money that is coming out of their pockets that they're not realizing. And when people think that they're losing money, it really ticks them off. So I got to start with the business impact and ask them, and how much do you think that has cost you? Round numbers. Gut feel, ballpark, Charlie, what do you think that's cost you guys over the course of the last 12 months? Now make sure that when you're doing the business impact, that you're putting it in a longer time frame, like in the last 12 months, 2 years, because I want to extrapolate that impact to make it a much larger. Now, I didn't cause that problem, but I want them to see it in a grander scale. And that's where I believe that a lot of times, a lot of salespeople don't want to go there because they assume that it has a huge impact. But if it doesn't impact that business to a big enough degree, I don't want to make it a bigger deal for me to fix a problem than it is for them to fix their own problem. I need to understand what's the monetized impact looking like, so that I can put together a solution that rightly fits their needs relative to what it's costing them. Because people will spend up to the amount of money they're losing in order to fix the problem. And yet, if I'm asked to deliver a proposal, but I don't know what the problem is costing them, I'm getting the cart far before the horse. And then the questions below that, how much do you think that's going to cost you? That's where we start to kind of toughen ourselves up and ask them. And then when people look at it, if they say, hey, I don't know, it's costing us an awful lot, I would say, well, let's figure that out. Because what I don't want to do, I don't want to give you a $10 solution to only a $5 problem. And you see, that's why I think it's imperative that when they say, well, why do you want to know that? And I would, in my kind of textbook line is, so that I don't give you a $10 solution to a $5 problem. That wouldn't be fair for you guys to put a solution together that far exceeds the cost to what the problem is costing you in the beginning. So well, how much do you think that's costing you? They say, for instance, $300,000. And I say, how do you know that? I want to know, how do they arrive? Like, what is their KPIs? What is their key performance indicators that are telling them what it's costing them? And then when they say, and I say, is that a lot or a little? And how do you feel about that? And how does that impact you personally? I want to know what's their personal impact, not just the corporate impact, but I also want to know what's the personal impact. How does that affect this individual I'm talking to? So if I'm talking to Charlie, I see that it's a $300,000 problem, and I see how you're kind of finding that out, but I'm not 100% sure. How does that impact you, though? I want to find out, is Charlie, does that cost him anything, and does he have an axe to grind in this as well? If he doesn't, then I need to find out, who does it impact? Who personally is impacted by this problem? And if Charlie is, great. I'm in front of one of the right people. If Charlie's not, then I have to get myself in front of the person or people that are the most impacted by the pain that we've discovered. And then the question there at the bottom, have you given up trying to deal with the problem? In other words, are you committed to taking the necessary action, or have you given up trying to deal with the problem? It's very, very interesting in the pain step that we don't just take and find somebody's got a problem, he's got pain, and then we immediately jump from step 3 to step 6 and immediately go in there to solve the pain. It's like going into the doctor's office, the doctor says, and he says, hey, what are you doing here? You know, what brought you in today? I got a terrible headache. Oh, okay. Well, I got time to do some brain surgery. Why don't you lay down? Let me open up your skull. Right? That's like far too premature. It's like, wait a minute, doc. Before you do that, let's do a little bit further diagnostic to determine whether or not that's even suitable. So be careful that we're not jumping to solution conclusions ahead of themselves. Now, here's our transition from our upfront contract into pain. And this is an example, just as an example of the transition, kind of the transition, like phraseology, terminology to get into the pain, part of my upfront contract. So if I said, hey, Charlie, I want to insure, I want to insure you, although we may never get to the point where you become a client, starting today, I'm going to treat you as a client. And what that means to you is that, we keep this conversation confidential and talk in real world numbers and reality so that we can determine if there's a potential return on investment. Are you okay with that? In other words, my upfront contract in the pain is I'm going to ask Charlie a lot of questions, and we're going to be doing this in a confidential conversation. And so I'm going to need to understand what the numbers are all about and determine, is there a potential return on his investment? And before we get started, are you okay with that? In other words, I got to tell him, I'm going to ask you some tough questions about the numbers, and I need to make sure in advance up front that I'm going to ask you those, and you need to be aware that that's what we're going to talk about so that we can determine if there's going to be, a good potential return on your guys' investment dollars. You all right with that? We have to get approval before we go into that. In other words, get approval that we can ask them some tough questions about his numbers. And if somebody says, well, look, I don't want to share any of that with you, I'd say, all right, well, is there a reason that you don't want to? In other words, if we're going to be the doctor, we're going to have to get, really under the covers to find out what's going on so that I don't guess and I don't just make up some kind of, diagnostic solution that may not necessarily fix the problem that we are going to have. So, to ensure that we never get to the point, that we're talking about things that aren't relevant, I want to make sure that you're comfortable if I ask you some questions about your numbers. We need to do that in advance so they expect it and almost look forward to it. Now, these are, as I say, the numbers. These are the pain KPIs, the key performance indicators. And you, as I have there, be sure to listen for them, listen for these KPIs in their questions and in their statements. And this is, we should have our, let's say, our KPI antenna up when we're in the pain step, because we should have our antenna up. And anytime you hear things where they're talking about problems with the number of blank, you know, the number of weeks that it takes to get their package delivered beyond what the expected delivery date. When they're talking about the problems with the margins that they're having, they're not making enough margins. Or when they're talking about how many of, you know, how many of the shipments are going, or of their packages are going bad, how long it takes to get the material on hand for their project. Anything that has a numeric value to it, we have to keep a good eye and a good ear open. Listen for what their KPIs or key performance indicators are. Listen intently, because they'll tell you, you know, we're not happy because of the length of time that it takes. Now that's a KPI. A performance indicator is the length of time. Measuring time, and how many of their deliveries are, let's say, subpar. That's the kinds of stuff that we have to be extremely alert to, because that's the stuff that they're kind of explaining to us as doctors, steel doctors. We have to have, you know, our antenna perked up and listening, because they'll tell us what it is that needs to be fixed. As you're going in, so the situational questions and the structure of it, and these are the types of questions you ask. Hey, what's your typical project look like? And with the current structure, the way you guys are set up now, and the way that you're getting your steel projects delivered, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where a 1 is, you know, it's god awful. I mean, it can't get any worse. A 10 is it's good. Where are you? And what you're looking to do there is have them, let's say, quantify or qualify how things are going for them right now on a scale of 1 to 10. It's as simple and easy as getting them to choose a number, but you have to ask the question. You know, what's the current structure with the way you guys are working your deck and joist packages now? 1 to 10. 1 is it's the worst thing you've ever experienced as far as putting your projects together. 10 is it's far exceeds your expectations. Where are you? And here again, you're looking for anything less than a 10. You know, you're going to say is, all right, what do you think? I mean, what are the 3, 4, 5 things that you would believe would have the biggest and fastest impact on you guys in order to get closer to that meeting your expectation? You know, from a fabricator's perspective, what are the 3, 4 things that you believe would have the biggest and fastest impact to get you closer to a 10? Again, we're looking for their vision of what needs to change and what needs to take place, what fear they have, what pain they have, and what fear they're looking to avoid. And then another question there is, of these things that you've listed, how would you rate them in order of magnitude? So again, this is getting multiple, you know, impacts, 3, 4 things that they believe will have the biggest, fastest impact to get you closer to 10. And of those things you just listed, how would you rate them in order of magnitude? So I want to make sure I work on the things that are going to have the quickest, biggest, fastest impact on them. So start with the ones that they tell you would have the biggest order of magnitude, right? Let them lead it. It's like you're giving them the reins, right? You're giving them the reins. You're controlling this horse, but you're giving them the reins to run as hard and as fast and as long as they want to run, but you can control the ebb and flow of it by the questions you're asking. Now, starting that pain funnel. Again, back to that pain funnel. And that pain funnel is just, it's really taking somebody from very, very big, broad type of questions and just drilling it like a funnel, wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. So big, wide, broad questions at the top of the pain funnel, down to very, very narrow, specific pieces at the bottom. Can you tell me more? What I like about that question is people are rarely at a loss for words. They'll always want to expand upon the problem that they have. If they have an ear, right, your ears, and you show a sincere interest in solving your problem for them, and you say, can you tell me more? They will dump as much information as needed out there. And the more we gather, the more likely we'll be able to put together a solution to fix their problem. So don't expect that the first statement they give you is the only thing that they want to kind of open up on. Tell me more. Can you tell me more? Can you be more specific? Can I get an example of that having taken place? And when you ask for specificity or get a real life, recent example of it taking place, then they want to, it's almost as though they're justifying their problem and telling you, it's like they want to prove the point to you. It says, you know, that ABC I always teach, you know, always be curious, always be curious, always be curious. When you're curious, can you be more specific? Can I get an example of that having happened recently? If they say, yeah, you want an example? As a matter of fact, that last project that we just you know, worked on, you know, that one was 3 weeks overdue. You know, and that's the most recent example. And if I say, well, how long has that been a problem? Just one time, and one time they were late, but they've never been late before. They say, heck no. That's happened probably 8 out of the last 10 projects I've worked with those. So it's been an ongoing problem. I want to know, is that something that they've almost started to kind of accept and live with? How long has that been a problem? And if it's been going on for, let's say, 6 years, I'd say, all right, 6 years, you guys have learned to live with that. If they say, no, it's been going on for the last 3 projects, I'd say, all right, and what have you done to try and fix it? I mean, you talk to these people. What did they tell you? What have you done to try to fix it? And if they say, well, we threatened them, you know what, we told them we weren't doing this work with them anymore. And I'd say, and how did that work? So as you can see, each one of these, it's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone through the pain step. And how did that work? The assumption being that worked, and how did that work? Well, it didn't work at all. The next time they were, instead of 3 weeks late, only 2.5 weeks late. And then after I get them to really, let's say, when I say buy in, not necessarily buy in, but sell to me that they have pain, and I'd say, all right, so how much do you think that's costing you? So how much do you think that's costing you in dollars over the course of a 12-month time frame? Like how much is that costing you per project? How many projects do you have that happens to annually? In other words, it starts to exponentially grow, and the more it grows, the more upset they get about it. Now, back to the pain funnel, and did that solution work that they put in? And how much do you think it cost? How do you feel about it? And have you given up? Those are all the bottom portions of that pain funnel. All right, so it's the pain funnel is like the style of questions that you're asking. The painometer is the compartments inside the pain step, but it's all based around the monetization of pain. And far too often, as I said before, far too often, people find out pain and they want to solve it as soon as they hear it. Do not be so fast to resolve a pain before you know what the problem is costing them. Business ROI. Here's some other questions. These are some questions for you to ask when you have that, them telling you some of their key performance indicators when they start to, are able to quantify, hey, what are you measuring to determine success? Well, profitability on a project, turnaround time. Where are you at currently? Where are you at currently? You need to know what you're currently at and where they need to be. Where would you like it, or should it be, if that's where you are right now? So if we know where they are, we want to know where they want to be. And also, what's the value of the difference? That's another question that we want to find out. What are you measuring to determine success? Where are you currently? Where would you like it, or should it be? And what's the value of the difference between 2 and 3? Where you are currently, and what do you think it should be? Currently, we're at 3 weeks. All right, where would you like it, or do you believe it should be? Well, it should be a week. Okay. And then what's the value over time? What's the worth of the business if you had that in those additional 2 weeks, right? So what's a week of downtime costing you? And in this case, 3 times that amount is 3 weeks. And then you're quantifying the difference. Is that a lot or a little in your world? And is it big enough to do something about it? Here's some examples that I put together for the ROI, the pain by the numbers examples. They most likely don't know and need your help to figure it out, the answer to these questions. How much is the average project worth? That's a great, great, great question for us to always be asking. We need to start to get more comfortable with talking to prospects or customers about things, financial, project value, and to start to have that conversation. Because the more we talk about it, the more comfortable we are to bring it up in those situations. How many projects is your company doing right now? How many should they be doing? How long does a particular customer client stay with you? And so how much is that customer worth over their lifetime, and what should it be? So when you're asking these questions to these people, they start to see you as more than just people that are supplying them with, in their mind, a commodity item, like deck and joist. This starts to lead into more of a strategic advisory role on your part, because you're talking to them about things that nobody else is. It causes them to start, and that's why I put up there, they most likely don't know and need your help to find out some of this stuff. And they start to think, hey, if New Millennium is helping me with my clients and the client lifetime value, that's what they're after. Every one of your customers is looking to retain their customers for a long, long time. And if they think New Millennium might have some input in that, or some value in helping them retain their clients, they're gonna see you in a different light than they see, Volcraft, and they see Can-Am or anybody else. You have a much broader, deeper business conversation with them, as opposed to this is what our material cost. And if that's the only thing you talk to them about is the cost for the steel, that's what they can get from anybody else. But you're doing a deeper dive into the nature of their business and the problem that they're facing in their business. They see you as a problem solver, they're not going to want to get rid of you. Ending the pain funnel. When you wrap up the very, very bottom of the pain funnel, how does that make you feel? This is really when we start to get them into that emotional conversation. Have you given up trying to fix it? That's a great question. Have you given up trying to fix it? And it causes them to, like, well, yeah, I have given up. All right, so So based on what you're telling me, even if we could get this thing resolved for you, there's no way in the world that you guys would ever consider working with New Millennium. In other words, you're calling them out. Have you given up trying to fix this problem? And if they say, no, we haven't given up trying to fix it, all right, well, where does it rank in your list of initiatives? And there again, it's so trying to figure out how they're prioritizing this fix. I want to make sure that it is high enough on their list of initiatives or their prioritization of things that we don't just go out and put a nice package together for them, and then it falls lower and lower in their to-do list. I want to make sure that it ranks high enough. And the higher the dollar value is of their pain, the higher it is on their list of initiatives. I want to help them with the things that are giving them the most aggravation, that are costing them the most, and that with this pain removed from their lives, they're going to have a more successful and productive business. If they see you as a fix in that piece, they're going to love it. And so why now? Why now is determining urgency. Why now is going to help them get to the urgency. And if they say, well, I'll tell you why I want to get this thing addressed now, is because, and then they start to give you every reason why this is something that is affecting them in a negative way, and they got to get it resolved. Now, let me tell you about SVIC. The SVIC is part of the end of the pain funnel, best practice, which stands for summarize, validate, importance, and commitment level. What you want to do is to summarize. And if I took somebody through the pain funnel and I'd say, all right, Charlie, what I think I hear you telling me is A, B, C, and D. B being the number one most critically thing that you need to get it done. And this is what you've done. This is what you've attempted to do. This hasn't worked. And you're looking to see if you can get this thing rectified. Did I get that correct? Now, what I want to do is summarize all of the pain pieces that he and I talked about. So summarization of everything we've talked about. Validation is getting Charlie to agree that, yeah, it's exactly where we are. And I'd say, did I miss anything? Did I get that up? So he'd say, no. As a matter of fact, you got every part of it. It's what I call active listening. So summarize what Charlie told you about the pain, validate it to make sure that you didn't miss anything and you got it all straight. And then you would go into the importance and say, Charlie, hey, scale of 0 to 10. 0 means no importance whatsoever on this. 10 is it's really important, and we're committed to taking the action necessary to get it fixed. There again, it's that 0 to 10 scale. We call it the thermometer scale, but it's really, really meant to make sure that it is as important to them, and they